In many developed countries, inequality has been characterized by stagnation of wages and economic opportunities for the masses. Median income stayed still. There is a growing underclass. In Singapore, our median income is still rising. Low and middle income families continue to experience real income growth and social mobility. Singaporeans have been enjoying a rising standard of living and are motivated to do well. This is both a result of our culture, who we are, as well as public policies. But transforming from third world to first has created new problems and new forms of inequalities. So first, a rising middle class which aspires to do even better. But material progress is getting increasingly difficult given our high base. Second, some low-income families find it difficult to uplift themselves, and stratification risk becoming entrenched. And third, some amongst a higher income segment are becoming socially distant from the rest. And these are our three inequality problems. Some think that universal welfare can be a solution to all these problems. Universal welfare, what does it mean? It means making assistance broadly and easily accessible to not just the lower income, but also the middle income. Proponents argue that with universal welfare, there will be no stigma associated with social assistance, and the dignity of the low income will be preserved. A few countries have implemented universal welfare, but make no mistake, no handout is actually free. Someone has to pay for it. To support universal welfare, taxes need to go up. For these countries, average income tax on a typical worker is about 30%. GST is typically 20 to 25%. In Singapore, half of our population do not pay personal income taxes, and GST is still single digit. If we want universal welfare, taxes on ordinary folks, including the middle income, will have to be much higher. But the greater concern is the impact on motivation. And I noticed yesterday Mr. Pritam Singh also alluded to it, and that is a concern that should not be dismissed. So a few weeks ago, in the public dialogue, I called for views and suggestions on how we can better tackle inequality. And I thank everyone who contributed and wrote to me. One young man left a comment on my Facebook page. His name is Chi Kian, and he's now a teacher. His father was a taxi driver, his mother a cleaner. And he said, I quote, "I benefited from the meritocratic system in Singapore. I worked hard through the education system to achieve what I am today. However, I noticed that it is getting harder for poorer students to break through the system like the past, as privileged kids garner many advantages since young and stay ahead. We need to bridge the gap between the rich and the underprivileged through education so that more Singaporeans are able to succeed through working hard." This is a young man who clearly empathizes with the challenges of the low income. But his solution was for the system to enable people to help themselves, not welfare. What's the difference? We make help available to them, but we also preserve their motivation so that they continue to strive instead of being passive recipients of welfare. Members of this House have worked with low-income families week in, week out, and you understand their plight. Others outside of this House might have read about them and their plight. But let's not forget the ethnographies of those like Chi Kian, who worked hard and bounced back, thanks to the social trampoline we have. The government must continue to extend assistance to the disadvantaged, and it will. But making handouts easy and unconditional is not dignity. Self-reliance is. What can we do in the next phase, especially for education, and how should we do it? The phrase bold changes in the President's address received a lot of attention. While we should be bold, we should not be reckless, for this will undo what had worked, undermine the fundamentals of our system, and all this has helped serve our students well over the years. Let's not undermine that. We must be bold and we must be wise. To do this, we need to put our ears close to the ground, listen to the voices of all segments of Singaporeans. And if we listen close enough, we will also realize that the voice of the people does not deliver a singular message. Rather, it offers a diversity of views, conflicting and complex, even as they remain compelling. Take, for example, the call for streaming to be abolished. The argument is that it will remove the label and the stigma of the normal streams. But we also need to put ourselves in the students' shoes. We cannot assume the students all want to be in the express stream. Some prefer the pace of learning in the normal streams. Many students will tell you, and I'm sure they used to tell Minister Ong Ye Kung when he visits them, they will tell you they prefer to be a big fish in a smaller pond rather than a small fish in a bigger pond. Many students in the normal technical course also like the more applied and hands-on curriculum, which they feel plays to their strengths. So we cannot ignore how these students feel. Remember, stigma is not an education policy, but a result of our own attitudes and biases. There is also the call for PSLE to be abolished, one of the hot favorites. So that way we take away the stress and the unfairness, because those from better family backgrounds can afford additional help and prepare their children better for their examinations, and therefore abolish PSLE. But if you speak to enough parents, you will also realize that many support the PSLE system, because the PSLE experience teaches their children to work hard and to demonstrate what they have learned throughout primary school years. Many parents are also not overly stressed by it, because they don't see PSLE as an exercise to chase for high marks, but rather as an objective and transparent way to decide which secondary schools their children will go to. And for many families from humble background, for many students from humble background, for them PSLE is their way of doing well and go to a school of their choice. The alternative, which is to go by residential location, is even more unfair. From 2021, we will replace PSLE T-score system with wider achievement levels. With this change, we will not differentiate students so finely for secondary 1 posting. If the scores are no longer so fine, how do we then allocate secondary school places? For students with the same scores, we will use tiebreakers. Citizenship first, then your choice, and finally, all else fail, we ballot. I'm confident that this will reduce the stress of students and help them enjoy learning more. This is a big step change, and it is coming in 3 years' time. We also heard many considered views and arguments on how we can improve the education system, better help the disadvantaged, and we have acted on them. We will see results in the coming years. One strong view over the years, and resulted in a consensus, is that one of the best ways to help children from lower income families is through quality preschool education. These are their formative years, and will have lasting impact. We have been growing the capacity and quality of the preschool sector, including introducing MOE kindergartens, where 1/3 of the places are set aside for children from low-income families. At MOE kindergartens, children don't mark, study, and get trained academically. Instead, they learn through play and conversations. And through these activities, they develop confidence, social skills, as well as a foundation in literacy and numeracy. We heard the voices of people such as Ms. Denise Phua, who has always championed a program-based rather than class-based approach to to cater to different learning needs and interests of students. And so we are ensuring more porosity between such classes and streams. For students in the normal stream, we introduced subject-based banding, where they can attend certain classes together with students in the express stream. We introduced the Polytechnic Foundation program, where good performing students in normal streams can articulate directly to polytechnics, and they did very well. I think more can be done in this area. We received so much feedback about stress in the system and too much rote learning. So over the years, our curriculum and pedagogies have continuously evolved and changed. Non-essential curriculum was cut down drastically. Long gone are the days where children are expected to do well just by memorization. Today, primary school students face their first examinations only at the end of primary 2. We embedded 21st century skills, which are critical soft skills, into the curriculum. The way higher education is being delivered in IT, polytechnics, and universities have also been drastically transformed. It is nothing like what parents remember them to be. We have also put in place more help for the young from vulnerable families. Kids Start builds all-round support for these children. The Ministry of Social and Family Development has roped in social workers, counselors, nurses, pediatricians, educators to provide holistic support to these children. The target is to help 1,000 children over a period of 3 years. That's the pilot program duration. In lower primary, we will continue our efforts, including through the Learning Support Program and through the program which is conducted in small groups of 8 to 10. We dedicate resources to help weaker students. This is why even though our student-to-teacher ratio is at the levels of other developed countries, MOE has refrained from implementing a general reduction in form class sizes. Smaller form classes across the board can be beneficial to students, but it will deprive weaker students of the more dedicated support that we are able to provide today. So embedded in our class size practices is also our social compact. After-school environments matter too. Students need a supervised and secure environment to complete their homework, study for tests, seek counsel and guidance. By 2020, there will be student care centers in every primary school. Admission policies greatly affect diversity in our schools. For primary 1 registration, 40 places in each school are set aside for phase 2B and 2C, which are for children who do not have prior direct connections to the school. From next year, secondary schools with affiliated primary schools will have to ring-fence 20% of the places for students without affiliation. We also work with many community partners. The major education and assistance programs are funded and run by government in an ethnically neutral way. Self-help groups come in, complement the effort by reaching out to vulnerable members of their communities and offer additional help. Let me share 2 stories. First is Madam Sharina Tan, a single parent to 4 children. They used to live in a 1-room flat, rental flat in Bukit Merah. Madam Tan worked as a part-time clerk, earning about $1,000 a month. Then various organizations, government agencies, ST Pocket Money Fund, public hospitals step in to assist her. CDAC reached out to her, and her children benefited from one-to-one tuition under the Supervised Homework Group Program. Today, Madam Tan is working as a sales coordinator, earning about $2,000 a month. She's the proud owner of a 2-room HDB flat. Her eldest son just graduated from Ngee Ann Polytechnic, and he won an award for the most outstanding academic performance in his course. The other 3 children are studying also in Ngee Ann Polytechnic, another one in IT, and the last in secondary school. All are coping well. The second story is that of Mr. Hairul Hakim Kutibutin. When he was 14, his father passed away. The family downgraded their flat. The mother had to return to the workforce to support the family. She worked as a factory operator and a service staff in a fast food restaurant. Mr. Hairu received help from various schemes, including from Mendaki, Sinda, and bursaries from the Muslim Trust Fund. That helped him complete his studies. And he graduated as the top student from NUS Law Faculty in 2016. And today is a Justice Law Clerk at Supreme Court, very nearby. These are two of many Singaporeans whom our system has helped. Finally, one of the best counter against inequality is skills future. If meritocracy is confined to academic excellence, success is defined narrowly as being a university graduate holding a professional or managerial position, then pathways will be limited, possibilities reduced, opportunities curtailed. There is a pertinent question in Chinese, no? 为什么要千军万马过一个独木桥? Why ask an entire army to cross the river using one plank, a single plank? Why can't we have many paths and many pathways to success? In Switzerland, 35% of youths go to universities, while the rest enroll in upper secondary vocational and apprenticeship training. Children, together with their parents, make those choices at a fairly young age, based on their talent and interests, with little or no stigma associated with any of the choices. The society respects everyone. Through Skills Future, we want to help everyone discover their strengths and talents, build the pathways to help them achieve skills mastery through lifelong learning and honing of their craft. We have made some progress. Today, we can celebrate our children choosing to be a coder, cybersecurity expert, chef, event organizer, creative designer, hospitality professional, nurse, early child educator, filmmaker, or craftsman. And they have to undergo the requisite training, not necessarily in a university. This is not the case 10 years ago. But a lot more needs to be done. We will have to develop even more pathways and opportunities within our education and our training system. Employers' hiring and human resource practices have to wake up to this new mindset. Some employers have, and I applaud them. Societal mindset will take even longer to evolve and change. We will continue to improve our policies, and we will not stop at these measures. My invitation for ideas and suggestions remains open. From the multitudes of voices, we will discern that singularity of action, a choice that is right for Singapore, and one which we must explain well, persuade people, and be able to defend publicly. So bold moves need not always be major changes. They can be a change in the way of thinking, a spark to add to the Singapore flame. This has to be supported by an entrepreneurial attitude towards tackling problems such as inequality. We will actively look out for fresh ideas and try out new solutions. If we come across an interesting and promising approach, we will be prepared to consider it, develop it further, run a pilot program, and see how it works.